In today's episode, we're exploring 3 shocking stories of people who came face to face with deadly circus animals and the tragic consequences that followed. From a young man whose show with 3 lions went horribly wrong to a woman who thought dancing with a wild-born tiger would be safe. But first, let's dive into the story of Viktor Petrov. December 17, 2012, at the Moscow State Circus buzzed with anticipation that evening, its historical walls holding the excited chatter of over 2,000 spectators. Families filled the red velvet seats, children clutching cotton candy and pointing at the sawdust-covered ring below. The temperature outside had dropped to 5 degrees, making the warmth of the circus tent even more inviting. None of the audience members could have imagined that they would soon witness a performance that would end in unthinkable tragedy. Viktor Petrov, known throughout Russia as the Bear Whisperer, had spent over 2 decades building his reputation as the country's premier bear trainer. At 45, he commanded respect and admiration in the circus world, having performed with dozens of bears throughout his career. But none had been as impressive as Kaiser, an 800-pound Siberian brown bear that had been his partner for 8 years. Born into a circus dynasty, Viktor had learned the art of bear training from his father, Mikhail Petrov, a Soviet-era performer who had worked with the Moscow State Circus since the 1960s. The Petrov name was synonymous with bear acts, their family having trained over 30 bears across 3 generations. Viktor had started young, cleaning cages at 8, assisting with training at 12, and performing his first solo act at 17. By 2012, Viktor had become infamous for his controversial training methods and absolute refusal to use safety barriers during performances. He often boasted that a true master needed no cage, dismissing concerns from fellow trainers. His show drew massive crowds but also faced mounting criticism from animal welfare activists. Russian animal rights groups had condemned his methods as cruel and dangerous, with some staging protest outside his performances. Even his father had warned him about growing too confident. Kaiser had come into Viktor's life in 2004, born into captivity as part of a breeding program that supplied animals to circuses across Russia. From the beginning, their relationship was different. While most trainers maintained professional distance, Viktor treated Kaiser like a pet, often entering his enclosure alone and even sleeping nearby during training periods. This behavior had earned him criticism from fellow trainers, but Viktor dismissed their concerns with his trademark arrogance. The bear's early years showed promise. Kaiser learned quickly, mastering complex routines that amazed audiences. But there had been warning signs. In 2009, he had suddenly stopped mid-performance, refusing commands for several minutes. In 2011, he had snapped at Viktor during a rehearsal, tearing his costume. Each incident was documented but dismissed by Viktor as mere personality quirks. The circus atmosphere was electric. Christmas decorations adorned the historic venue, and the smell of popcorn and cotton candy filled the air. Outside, eager patrons gathered despite the bitter cold, their excitement palpable as they lined up for the evening spectacle. Inside, the stage was set for another night of breathtaking performances. But for Viktor, this show would be unlike any other. That day, something was different. Backstage, Kaiser was showing signs of agitation, pacing in his holding area and refusing commands during the pre-show check. 2 handlers, Dmitry Volkov and Ivan Petrov, Viktor's younger cousin, approached with their concerns. Dmitry noted that Kaiser had barely touched his morning meal, suggesting they should cancel the act. Viktor dismissed them with a wave of his hand, straightening his crimson performance jacket adorned with gold buttons. To him, the bear was just excited for the performance. What Viktor didn't know was that Kaiser had been suffering from an undiagnosed dental abscess, causing him significant pain. The bear's medical checkups had been sporadic at best, another corner cut by a trainer who believed he knew best. The act began as it had hundreds of times before. Viktor entered the ring to thunderous applause, his arms raised triumphantly as the spotlight followed his confident stride. The orchestra played a dramatic Russian folk tune, building anticipation for Kaiser's entrance. When the massive bear appeared, standing impressively on his hind legs, he towered over Viktor at nearly 8 feet tall. The audience gasped at the sheer size of the creature. The routine started smoothly. Kaiser performed his standard tricks, rolling a large barrel across the ring, dancing on his hind legs, and balancing on a specially reinforced platform. But observant audience members, including retired animal trainer Mikhail Kuznetsov, noticed concerning details. Kaiser's movements were jerky and uncertain. His eyes darted constantly around the ring and his ears remained pinned back, a clear sign of stress that Victor either didn't notice or chose to ignore. Halfway through the performance, during a pause between tricks, Kaiser let out a low growl that wasn't part of the act. The sound echoed through the tent, causing several children in the front row to shrink back in their seats. Victor responded by tapping the bear's nose with his training stick, a move that would prove to be his final mistake. The act was building toward its famous finale, the loving embrace where Kaiser would gently hug Victor before they both took a bow. As Victor approached the bear with arms outstretched, Kaiser rose to his full height. The audience held their breath, expecting the usual heartwarming conclusion. What happened next would haunt witnesses for years to come. Instead of the expected embrace, Kaiser's massive forelimbs slammed into Victor, sending him staggering backward. He barely had time to react before his back hit the wooden barrier at the edge of the ring. A sickening crack echoed through the tent as ribs gave way under the bear's sheer force. Before Victor could recover, Kaiser's powerful jaws clamped onto his shoulder, crushing bone with terrifying ease. Blood seeped through his crimson jacket and onto the bear's thick, tawny fur, darkening it to a deep, glistening red. The audience sat frozen, many unsure if this was part of the act. It became horrifyingly clear it wasn't when Kaiser dragged Victor's struggling form toward the back curtain, leaving a trail of blood across the sawdust. Children screamed, parents covered their eyes, and chaos erupted in the stands. Handlers rushed forward with tranquilizer guns, but in the cramped space behind the curtain, they couldn't get a clear shot. The bear's massive frame blocked their view as he continued to maul Victor. The sound of tearing flesh and breaking bones mixed with Kaiser's deep growls, reverberating throughout the historic circus building in a chilling cacophony of violence. Dmitry Volkov, the senior handler, attempted to distract Kaiser using emergency protocols, banging metal bars and spraying fire extinguishers. But the bear, now fully consumed by primitive instinct, wouldn't release his former trainer. For 28 agonizing minutes, the attack continued while the audience was evacuated and emergency services arrived. In the stands, Victor's father, Mikhail, watched helplessly as his worst fears materialized. He had warned his son countless times about his reckless approach to safety. Now, those warnings had become a devastating reality. The elderly man collapsed in grief and had to be treated for shock by paramedics. When veterinarians finally managed to sedate Kaiser with multiple tranquilizer darts, Victor's body was barely recognizable. The bear had crushed his rib cage, severed his left arm, and caused catastrophic damage to his head and neck. Emergency responders pronounced him dead at the scene, noting it was one of the most violent animal attacks they had ever witnessed. The investigation that followed revealed disturbing details about Victor's operation. Kaiser's medical records showed no veterinary visits for the past 18 months. Training logs indicated multiple instances of aggressive behavior that had been ignored. Most damning was the discovery that Victor had been skipping Kaiser's meals before performances, believing a hungry bear would be more compliant. The autopsy of Victor's body revealed over 140 distinct wounds, but it was the crushing force of Kaiser's initial embrace that had proven fatal. Forensic experts estimated that the bear had exerted over 1,200 pounds of pressure, collapsing Victor's chest cavity within seconds of the attack. Kaiser's own medical examination conducted after the incident revealed the severe dental abscess that had likely contributed to his aggressive state. The pain would have been excruciating, making the bear particularly volatile during physical contact. Despite calls for rehabilitation, Russian circus authorities deemed Kaiser too dangerous to be kept alive. The bear was euthanized 3 days after the attack. Victor's death raised concerns about working with wild animals, but 27-year-old Maria Chen's performance would take those fears to a new level. Known for her daring tiger dance, Maria's flawless routine turned deadly when her rare white Bengal tiger, with no prior signs of aggression, suddenly attacked. How could a moment so perfect turn into something so tragic in the blink of an eye? On the evening of January 8, 2014, the bright lights of the Las Vegas Strip pale in comparison to the dazzling spectacles that unfold inside its legendary venues. For decades, performers have pushed the boundaries of entertainment, creating shows that blend danger with artistry. But sometimes that delicate balance tips toward disaster. This was the case for Maria Chen, whose revolutionary tiger act would end in a tragedy that changed circus entertainment forever. Born to Chinese immigrants in San Francisco, Maria Chen defied expectations, forging a path that combined her two greatest passions, dance and wild animals. From childhood, she was captivated by dance and wild animals, spending hours watching nature documentaries while practicing ballet. At 18, she earned a scholarship to Juilliard, where she studied dance while secretly taking courses in animal behavior. Her breakthrough came in 2008 at age 27 when the Mirage's talent scout spotted her performing in a contemporary dance show. They were looking for someone to revolutionize their aging circus program. Maria's unique vision, combining classical ballet with big cat performance, caught their attention. Within months, she was training with veteran tiger handlers, learning the intricate art of working with these powerful predators. The Mirage invested millions in the Dance of the Wild, transforming their theater into a state-of-the-art performance venue. Maria's show became the hottest ticket in Las Vegas, grossing over $80 million in its first 3 years. Critics hailed it as a circus reimagined, and her innovative approach to blending art with animal performances caught the attention of major media outlets. Arjun entered Maria's life as a 6-month-old cub. Maria worked alongside veteran trainers learning the intricacies of working with tigers, but it was her unique vision that brought the stunning white Bengal tiger into the spotlight. Together, they performed over 2,000 shows without incident. Their act was so successful that other casinos began developing their own animal dance fusion shows, though no one matched the artistry of Maria and Arjun's performance. Tigers are the largest of all big cats, with male Bengal tigers reaching up to 10 feet in length and weighing over 500 pounds. Their bite force measures an incredible 1,000 pounds per square inch, strong enough to crush bone with ease, while their 4-inch retractable claws can tear through flesh with ease. A single swipe from a tiger's powerful forelimb is capable of breaking a human skull or knocking down prey twice its size. White Bengal tigers like Arjun are an even rarer anomaly, caused by a recessive genetic trait fewer than 200 exist in captivity, and they are almost non-existent in the wild. That January evening, the 8:30 p.m. show began like any other. The 2,800-seat theater was packed, tickets having sold out months in advance. Tourists from around the world and Vegas regulars filled the seats, many returning for their second or third viewing of what had been called the most mesmerizing show on the Strip. Maria moved gracefully onto the stage in her signature red and gold costume, the spotlight following her fluid movements. When Arjun entered, his muscular frame gleamed under the lights. The audience gasped in appreciation. At 520 pounds, the Bengal tiger moved with surprising grace, matching Maria's choreography with practiced precision. For 40 minutes, the show unfolded perfectly. Maria and Arjun moved through their intricate routine. She was performing elegant pirouettes while he stalked in perfect synchronization, their movements telling a story of trust between human and beast. The audience was captivated, their eyes fixed on the stage, unaware of the tragedy that would soon unfold. Then, during their signature ballet sequence, without warning or provocation, everything changed. Arjun, who had just completed a perfect series of choreographed movements, suddenly turned on Maria. In a split second, the illusion of control shattered. The tiger's massive frame launched through the air, slamming into Maria with devastating force. Under the bright lights, in full view of the horrified audience, Arjun's jaws clamped down on Maria's throat and chest. The sound of her bones crushing under his bite echoed through the suddenly silent theater. His powerful claws tore through her costume and flesh, the pristine stage floor quickly becoming slick with blood. The attack was quick, brutal, and completely unexpected. Unlike other documented tiger attacks where there had been warning signs or obvious triggers, this one offered no explanation. One moment they were dancing, the next Arjun's natural instincts had completely overwhelmed years of training. The emergency response team trained for this exact scenario but never expecting to use it reacted instantly. David Martinez, the head of security, led the coordinated effort. The first tranquilizer dart hit Arjun perfectly in his flank, even as he continued his savage attack center stage. A second dart followed 30 seconds later, finally causing the massive tiger to collapse beside Maria's motionless form. The entire attack lasted less than 2 minutes, but the damage was catastrophic. Maria lay in the center of the stage, her once beautiful costume now in shreds and soaked crimson. Emergency medical personnel reached her within moments, their faces grim as they assessed her injuries. The list of trauma was extensive. Arjun's powerful bite had crushed her throat, shattering her trachea. Multiple ribs were broken, with bone fragments piercing her lungs. The tiger's fangs had severed her left carotid artery, leading to massive blood loss. Deep claw wounds crossed her torso, arms, and face, some penetrating to the bone. Paramedics worked frantically to stabilize her as they rushed her toward Desert Springs Hospital about 4 miles away. In the ambulance, Maria's heart stopped twice. Each time they managed to revive her, but her blood pressure continued dropping despite their efforts. She received multiple units of blood during the 8-minute journey, but it wasn't enough to compensate for what she'd lost. The trauma team was waiting when they arrived, immediately rushing her into emergency surgery. For 3 hours, multiple surgical teams fought to save her life. They repaired what they could, reconnecting blood vessels, removing bone fragments from her lungs, trying to rebuild her crushed throat. But the combination of blood loss, organ damage, and trauma was too severe. At 11:47 p.m., Maria Chen was pronounced dead. The official cause of death was listed as exsanguination, or extreme blood loss, and massive traumatic injuries. The autopsy would later document 47 distinct bite wounds and 112 claw marks across her body. The force of Arjun's initial bite had been so powerful it had nearly severed her head from her shoulders. The news of Maria's death left the entertainment industry in disbelief. The Mirage immediately suspended all shows, drawing a dark curtain over what had been their most successful production in decades. Within days, the $80 million production was permanently canceled. The custom-built stage dismantled and the remaining tigers relocated to sanctuaries. The incident sparked intense debate about the use of exotic animals in entertainment. Circus performers worldwide defended their profession, citing decades of successful shows. However, the horrific nature of the attack painted a devastating picture of how quickly control can be lost. The graphic details of Maria's death became a rallying point for animal rights activists, further fueling the ongoing conversation about the ethics and safety of using wild animals in performance. What made the tragedy particularly impactful was its inexplicable nature. The investigation found nothing unusual in Arjun's behavior before the attack. His medical records were perfect, his training consistent, and his bond with Maria well documented. There had been no changes to his routine, no obvious triggers, no warning signs. The tiger had simply reverted to his natural instincts without warning. The Mirage's insurance company provided a substantial settlement to Maria's family. Her parents, who had initially opposed her career choice, used the funds to support initiatives focused on safety in the performing arts and promoting ethical alternatives to dangerous animal acts. Within months of the incident, several major Las Vegas venues began reevaluating their use of animal acts. One prominent casino discontinued its Big Cat Show, while another announced plans to reduce its reliance on dolphin and tiger performances in the coming years. The discussion sparked widespread debate in the entertainment industry, and by 2018, many casinos had made changes to the way animals were incorporated into their shows, opting for safer and more ethical alternatives. Arjun was retired to a sanctuary soon after the attack, following protests from animal rights groups who argued against euthanasia. A thorough veterinary exam revealed no abnormal health issues or stress-related factors to explain his sudden aggression. This only added to the mystery of the incident. There was no apparent explanation for why a once cooperative tiger had acted with such violence during what seemed like a perfectly orchestrated performance. Maria's performance shocked the circus world, but for another young performer, a different kind of danger loomed. At just 19 years old, Jamie Bellini was stepping into the ring with 3 lions, under the immense pressure of his family's legacy. It was December 29, 2009, and the winter chill hung heavy over Rome's outskirts. Inside the heated big top of Circo Romano, the smell of popcorn and cotton candy mingled with sawdust as families filled in for the evening performance. The circus industry was experiencing a renaissance in Italy, with revenues exceeding $500 million annually. Traditional family circuses like Circo Romano commanded premium ticket prices, some reaching $150 for front row seats to witness their famed animal acts. As the crowd settled in for the evening performance, the spotlight was ready to shine on one of nature's most fearsome predators, the lion. Known for their raw power, lions are among the most efficient killers in the animal kingdom. A male African lion can weigh up to 550 pounds with a bite force of 1,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush a human skull instantly. Their muscular frames allow them to sprint at speeds of up to 35 miles per hour, and their massive paws are armed with retractable claws capable of disemboweling prey with a single swipe. In the wild, lions are ambush predators, coordinating complex attacks within their pride. But within the circus ring, these same instincts are bent to human will, a delicate balance that, on this fateful night, would shatter. The Bellini name carried particular weight in European circus circles. For 4 generations, they had been synonymous with spectacular lion-taming performances. Their shows alone generated over $2 million yearly, making them one of the most successful family acts in the industry. The pressure of this legacy now rested on the shoulders of 19-year-old James "Jamie" Bellini, the youngest professional lion tamer in modern circus history. Behind the circus glamour lay the harsh reality of animal training. The Bellini method, like many traditional techniques, relied on food deprivation and physical dominance to ensure compliance. Lions were kept hungry before performances, disrupting their natural feeding patterns. Training began at 6 months old, using metal poles, electric prods, and whips to break their wild instincts. Jamie, raised in the circus, learned to read apex predators' body language instead of riding bikes like other children. His father, Marco Bellini, was a legendary lion tamer, revered for commanding even the most aggressive cats. Though Jamie graduated from the Circus Academy just 6 months prior, his hands-on experience with lions was dangerously limited. Family circuses often prioritized tradition over safety. The 3 lions in Jamie's act represented the terrifying power of nature. Caesar and Augustus, both 8-year-old males, had been trained since cubhood using traditional circus methods. Their spirits had been broken through years of systematic dominance training. Daily sessions where food was withheld until commands were perfectly executed, and any sign of aggression was met with physical punishment. The newest addition was Rex, a massive 500-pound male recently acquired from a South African breeder. Unlike the others, Rex had spent his first 4 years in a more natural environment, making him particularly resistant to human control. On that December evening, the big top was filled to capacity, with Marco Bellini sitting in the front row as the spotlights illuminated the sawdust ring. The air carried the metallic scent of fear, not from the audience, but from 19-year-old Jamie Bellini about to enter the cage. The lions could sense it too, their evolutionary instinct honed to detect the fear of potential prey. As Jamie stepped into the ring in a sequined costume, a replica of his father's, his traditional tools, a steel core training stick, and a backup whip seemed woefully inadequate against the combined 1,500 pounds of predator before him. In the holding cage, Rex's pupils dilated, his tail swishing ominously, signs of agitation that the handlers overlooked as routine. Lion training relies heavily on feeding schedules. Performers typically enter the ring approximately 4 hours after the cat's last meal, enough time for them to be hungry and motivated but not desperately so. That evening, due to a scheduled change, the lions hadn't been fed for nearly 6 hours. This seemingly small deviation from routine would prove fatal. The first part of the act began with basic commands. Caesar and Augustus performed their rehearsed movements, though their behavior showed subtle signs of defiance. Their responses were delayed by seconds, their movements stiff rather than fluid, indicators that the social hierarchy within the cage was shifting. In the wild, lions established dominance through unwavering confidence and physical presence. Jamie's nervous energy was broadcasting weakness to 3 predators programmed by evolution to exploit exactly that. When Rex entered the ring, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Unlike circus-bred lions, wild-born cats retain stronger hunting instincts. His eyes never left Jamie, but not in submission. He was displaying classic stalking behavior. Lions in the wild often maintain direct eye contact with their prey while positioning themselves for an attack. Jamie raised his training stick, his voice carrying a slight tremor as he commanded Rex to sit. The lion's ears flattened against his skull, a warning sign that went unheeded. In that crucial moment, Jamie made a fatal mistake. He broke eye contact, glancing briefly at his father in the audience. In the wild, this would signal submission to a lion. In the circus ring, it was an invitation to attack. Rex's attack came with explosive speed. The 500-pound mass of muscle slammed into Jamie's chest with the force of a small car. The training stick shattered, its steel core proving worthless against the immense power of the animal. The sound of Jamie's bones cracking echoed through the tent as Rex's jaws clamped around his shoulder. A lion's canine teeth can penetrate up to 2.5 inches deep into flesh, and their jaw strength is sufficient to crush the femur of a wildebeest. Jamie's collarbone shattered instantly under this devastating bite force. Caesar and Augusta, their own predatory instincts triggered by the scent of blood and the sound of struggle, joined the attack. While Rex maintained his grip on the upper body, Caesar attacked the legs, his powerful jaws crushing Jamie's right femur. Augustus, displaying typical pride hunting behavior, went for the throat, a natural killing technique lions use to suffocate their prey. The audience's screams mixed with the wet sounds of tearing flesh as the lions dragged Jamie across the sawdust. His sequined costume, designed to catch the spotlight, now gleamed with spreading crimson stains. The cats displayed a behavior known as kill frenzy, a state where predators become overwhelmed by their hunting instincts, often fighting among themselves over their prey while it's still alive. Marco, restrained by security personnel, watched helplessly from mere feet away. Circus protocol dictated that no one enter the ring during an attack. Introducing more humans would only escalate the predatory response. The handlers attempted to use fire extinguishers, a standard emergency response based on lions' natural fear of loud noises and unusual sensations. However, once in a kill frenzy, even these deterrents proved ineffective. The attack lasted just under 3 minutes, an eternity in which the full devastating power of 3 adult male lions was unleashed. When handlers finally managed to drive the cats back using a combination of fire extinguishers, electric prods, and metal poles, the damage was catastrophic. The human body contains approximately 1.5 gallons of blood. Jamie had lost nearly an entire gallon in those few minutes. Despite the immediate response of emergency services and being rushed to Opsdale San Camilo, Jamie was pronounced dead at 9:47 p.m. The medical examiner's report detailed the extent of the injuries: 126 distinct wounds across his body, including compound fractures to both femurs, 12 broken ribs, and a completely crushed larynx. His left shoulder had been nearly separated from his body, with tissue damage extending down to the bone. Rex's initial bite had generated enough force, approximately 1,000 psi, to splinter his scapula into 8 pieces. The fatal wound came from Augustus, whose powerful jaws had crushed Jamie's trachea and severed both carotid arteries, a killing technique perfected through millions of years of evolution. The 3 lions were initially quarantined for observation. Caesar and Augustus were later relocated to a wildlife sanctuary in South Africa, where they could live out their days in a more fitting environment far from the spotlight. Rex, however, was deemed a risk too great for rehabilitation and was humanely euthanized after further evaluations. The conclusion was clear. Rex's resistance to human control had never been mere tolerance, but a quiet defiance that ultimately led to the deadly eruption of instinct. The attack marked the end of an era for the Bellini legacy, leaving the circus industry to confront the uncomfortable reality of its relationship with the animals that had defied it for so long. Thank you for watching this episode. These stories are a chilling reminder that nature doesn't play by our rules, and one wrong move can be fatal. If you're ready to watch a family face a deadly nightmare after crashing their car into the water, only to be surrounded by a pack of sharks, click over to our next video. You won't believe what happens next. We'll see you there.